The Chandler Police Department executed a search warrant at Hamilton High School on June 1st. And among the items, handwritten notes and emails between school officials, players, and parents as the alleged sexual assaults were uncovered and the scandal became public. And we want to warn you, some of the details you're about to hear may be disturbing.
This particular email shows a chain of messages. The first, the district resource officer, Kevin Quinn. The name of the person who sent it, it's redacted. It reads, quote, "It may be nothing, but I keep hearing it over and over." A football player whom I believe is on varsity at Hamilton told several players he was sexually assaulted by other varsity players in the locker room as initiation into the program. I heard this from a handful of other players. He goes on to write, quote, "He was allegedly leaving the shower when other varsity players took his towel from him and bent him over a bench." The writer goes on to describe a simulated sex act, as well as fingers being inserted into the student's anus and his genitals grabbed, and also adds, quote, "According to him, this is a rite of passage and occurs regularly." Assistant Superintendent Craig Gilbert is copied in the email, and it appears this is the first time he's hearing about the allegations, even though previous documents and police investigators suggest the incidents may go as far back as 2015. Quote, "Have you already talked to Kevin about this? Had not seen this until now," he writes to Principal Ken James. The principal responds, quote, "We will talk on Monday." A memo seized in the warrant describes a meeting with a parent in February 2017, just before the scandal was made public. Mom's concerns, number one, quote, the safety of her son, and number two, mom, quote, brought up an incident in October that she had emailed the coach about, and said coach had a meeting but didn't appear to change anything. Another piece of evidence obtained by the 12 News I-Team, an apology letter from one of the players. Quote, "Dear coaches, I just want to apologize for my actions this year in and out of the locker room and not paying attention when I was told to. Now I know all of my bad decisions will lead me to being suspended or can put me in a worse situation." And then there's these handwritten notes on a yellow legal pad. The date, May of 2017. Well after the sexual allegations have been reported. It alludes to videos of the alleged assaults, asking, quote, "Is the victim in the video?" Another set of notes, again, not clear who wrote them. Quote, "Can I kick families out?" And, quote, "Coaches are not prepared for this kind of stuff."
And the investigation into these sexual assault allegations continues, and the Chandler Police Department is asking any potential victims to come forward. Charlie Etzity, 12 News at 10.
Chandler police say all 6 suspects are current or former members of the Hamilton High football team. And so are all the victims. Investigators can't say yet how many victims there may be, only that there could be more.
I found out as from my last class today.
Hamilton High's 2016 football captain Lattimore Hervey getting a text learning about the arrests.
From my parents saying that we're all over the news for rape, sexual assault, and kidnapping, and I was just shocked.
Chandler police arresting several Hamilton High School football players.
1 count of sexual assault, a Class 2 felony.
From the football field to in front of a judge.
2 felonies.
17-year-old Nathaniel Thomas, one of 3 football players, accused of committing disturbing sexual acts against their Hamilton High School teammates. Some of the acts allegedly recorded and posted on social media.
These are allegations.
The details laid out in court documents describe a tradition of hazing younger players, also known as fresh meat, inside the Chandler High School's locker room.
No criminal history.
Prosecutors say this initiation involved players being penetrated in their anus with fingers or objects as they were held down by their teammates. Documents also delving into specific incidents involving at least 4 victims under the age of 15. Thomas, the only player being charged as an adult, allegedly simulated sexual intercourse with 2 minors, one time removing a boy's pants and reportedly inserting his finger into the boy's anus.
The documents paint a picture of a football program that both staff members and parents told police they believed to be untouchable. The pages also provide a glimpse into the contradictory stories involving the principal, athletic director, and former head coach during police questioning. Again, some of the details you're about to hear might be disturbing to you.
We're learning the voicemail from January that alerted the school's athletic director, Sean Rustad, to the assault allegations was never documented and deleted, but not before Principal Ken James took a listen. And 1 week before police were finally called in February, an email from Assistant Athletic Director Sean Rustad was sent to head coach Steve Bellis titled, quote, "Hazing when adults look the other way." That article eerily similar to hazing allegations leveraged against Hamilton. Rustad instructing Bellis to remind his players how to behave. After the investigation began and head coach Steve Bellis was reassigned, the other coaches held a meeting that players described as suggesting they don't speak to the media or police. Another player reported being told by coaches, quote, "No one can get inside the program if the team does not allow them to." Several players were interviewed as part of the investigation, and one told police Bellis demanded teammates stop, quote, "sticking their fingers in each other's anuses," and then called them, quote, "a bunch of Sandusky's," referring to disgraced college football coach Jerry Sandusky, who was convicted of sex crimes against children. Another coach, his name Manny Palomares, is accused of having walked in on one of the assaults and failed to report it. Detectives concluded former head coach Steve Bellis was aware of specific sex acts occurring in the locker room, going back as far as 2015. And there are also suggestions administrators withheld or deleted emails from parents with information that may have aided investigators looking into the case, even though they had urged the staff and parents to come forward to the administration with any information they may have had about the investigation. And here's the most damning part of all of these documents. Investigators concluding, had these offenses been properly reported, it is probable that many of these sexual assaults may have not occurred.
Police say 3 staff members came forward claiming they did not trust the administration would hold the football program accountable. Police also say at least 5 players transferred from the team to other schools because of this problem, and that number has only increased since the investigation has evolved. Charlie Etzity, 12 News.
First, I want to apologize that we even have to be here.
For the first time in public, Hamilton principal Ken James talking to a crowd of parents and students about a tumultuous 10 days.
I have 4,000 students there that it just hurts me when they're hurting.
But as for answers about the future of this program, the school's hands are tied.
You know, we want to unify this community with our school because we just need the support. When it's all said and done, all of your questions will be answered. But we can't answer any of those because we know nothing yet.
The support for Nate Thomas has been overwhelming, with his attorney arguing he's not a danger to the community and that he is innocent.
My baby's coming home.
The mother of 17-year-old Nathaniel Thomas, along with about 200 students, celebrated the judge's ruling outside the courthouse, adamant that the teen is innocent.
And this whole allegation stuff, I know that's not him.
I would never in a million years ever think that this was ever true, and I know it isn't.
The judge heard arguments from both sides this afternoon, with the state asking bond to be no less than $150,000, claiming Thomas threatened accusers to keep quiet and his release could hamper the ongoing investigation.
Absolutely not. He did not violate anybody's rectum. He did not grab anybody in the genital area.
Thomas's attorney, Ken Countryman, denied the claims made by prosecutors, questioning their legitimacy, and also focused attention on the Hamilton football coaching staff.
Well, I'm not going to name individual names, but I think he's the head coach, and so he's certainly clearly not someone who supervise this locker room appropriately.
Nathaniel Thomas left the Lower Buckeye jail with his mother at his side, posting bond just a few hours after a judge issued the amount at $25,000. Thomas is one of 3 Hamilton High School football players facing charges in connection to allegations of hazing that accusers claim happened inside the football locker room.
On the first day of school, 2 men remain at the center of a football hazing case. Current principal Ken James.
When it's all said and done, all of your questions will be answered.
And former head coach Steve Bellis.
I was the captain of the ship. I'm the one being held responsible.
The Chandler Police Department recommending both men be held responsible, sending a request for charges to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office.
All we have is a piece of paper saying that they're accused of these offenses. And they're serious.
As a criminal defense attorney, Hector Diaz knows the charges Chandler is recommending well.
How serious are these charges? They're both felonies. And so under Arizona law, the duty to report is a felony when it involves a failure to report what's called a reportable offense under Arizona law.
4 families now say they intend to seek civil damages from the Chandler Unified School District, all represented by the same Phoenix attorney who says employees at Hamilton High School knew something inappropriate was happening and did not tell police.
I don't know what I would have done different because we didn't know.
All of your questions will be answered, but we can't answer any of those because we know nothing yet.
There's certainly information out there that they knew about it and failed to report it, which they're required to by law.
2 sides, 2 very different stories. Police recommending criminal charges against 3 Hamilton High School employees, saying they knew about hazing in the football locker room. PD even charging 3 teenagers, one is an adult, with crimes related to those allegations.
Innocent, he adamantly denies them.
I'll let that process take care of itself. I'm worried and focused on the civil side of things, not the criminal side.
Daniel Rainak is now representing a 4th family, claiming their son is a victim of hazing. He intends to file a notice of claim this week, demanding $7 million for each family.
Think about all the people you come into contact with each and every day. Going to work, going to school, picking up your kids from school. You probably don't even give them much thought, just strangers going about their business, living their lives.
But could you have more in common with these strangers than you'd ever imagine? Are there connections and shared experiences so powerful that can bring them together? We're about to show you. Jessica and Elisa are 2 moms who've never met. You'll see their stories playing out side by side, and at the same time, we reveal the secret bond they share and introduce them for the first time.
This is Common Ground.
Where's your backpack? You're gonna have to get on the other side. I don't know, we came and looked at it that morning and it was like, this is the house.
Now I'm getting ready to make your eggs, buddy boo. When I was pregnant with my daughter, he always liked touching my belly. He goes, sister. Okay, hold on, babies.
Yes.
That's a really good Spider-Man. I do that every time my son Justin has an achievement. Yep. It's my boy. Every so often, you know, if it's something that he's done really, really well, he'll want to go to the cemetery and tell his brother. I always wondered, is like, you know, how would he be right now with his brother? I remember the first year or 2, as soon as I turned into the cemetery, I sobbed. You think that you weren't there for them, but you did your best. We apologize a lot. And it's just one of those things as a parent that you have that guilt.
Yay! At first it's really hard, but now it's a lot easier because I know when she falls in that she's going to know what to do. It is scary. It only takes a second for your kid to get away from you. It gives you comfort knowing that she's learning how to swim and what to do if she does fall in.
My husband's like, where's Eric? I was just like, oh, let's get up. Let's see if he's in one of his hiding places. So I go and look in the garage. I look under the bed. Everybody's looking around for him. I go, let me just look outside one more time. And that's when I see him in the pool. I scream for my husband and tell him that he's in the pool. My husband jumps right into the middle of the pool, grabs him.
My back door was open, so I go outside looking for Parker, and I kept calling his name, walked back over, and I seen the pool rippling still, and I just was like, and the gate opened, and I was like, no way, that's not possible, and walked over to the pool, and there he was at the bottom, jumped in, got him out, and I brought him inside and started doing CPR on him on the table while my 8-year-old daughter called 911. He was 22 months old. He was almost 2.
And they took us into one of those rooms, and I didn't realize that when we were going into the emergency area that behind one of those curtains was our son. And that's when they told us, and my husband decided that he didn't want a stranger to dress my son, so he dressed him for the funeral. He picked him up and he put him. My husband shouldn't have done that. He said I had to have strength to dress my son and put him in the casket.
I spent quite a bit of time just sitting by the pool and just hoping that maybe I could hear him or something splashing around. it's a happy place for me. I feel like my son is still with me, and I don't want to leave that feeling.
I'll put it over here for you.
You know, they'll always have that twin connection, and, you know, I just kind of feel bad that, you know, he doesn't have that physical connection anymore.
Throughout this entire process, neither family knew about the other.
Until now. It's time we bring Jessica and Elisa together and help them connect over the common ground they share.
Do you want cereal for breakfast?
Yeah.
He'll want to go to the cemetery and tell his brother. I go and look in the garage, I look under the bed, everybody's looking around for him. I go, let me just look out outside. Running into the pool, it's not me giving him CPR, it's just that first look of him in the pool.
Jumped in, got him out, and I brought him inside.
But you did your best. We apologize a lot.
And I know you said you wanted to help be a pillar of support for a lot of families. Would you like to go meet her?
Yes, I would. It hurts to see a family that has to go through that. I first want to give you a hug. Yeah, beautiful son. You do. I'll give you a hug too.
I'm sorry you had to do it.
When you hear someone else's story that's similar, what goes through your mind?
Unfortunately, you're in a group that no other person will ever understand.
I think that helps by us is just remembering the good things. Trying not to dwell on the fact that he's not here.
I'm sure it's a thing that you guys never really forget about. It's got to be a constant reminder every single day. You pass by a pool, that has to be the first thing in your mind.
For the first year or so, it was hard for me to see a pool.
It took us a while to even be able to swim in the pool, but now it's like, you know, Parker's in here swimming with us too.
We get a lot of pool fences are ugly, and it's just burying your kids a lot uglier.
That's my main goal, is just to get out there and spread my story.
Hopefully we'll be able to change that with your help. The other reason we brought you here was that we're partnering up with Tracy and the Drowning Prevention Coalition. We want to do a PSA campaign, an anti-drowning campaign, and we want you guys to be a part of it, and your kids.
Definitely. Anything to help.
We would tell our
Get
story
less.
and cry tear every day as long as one more parent doesn't have to go through what we've all been through.
And people are very quick to say, well, it's not going to happen to me because I'm not a bad parent. And I think these are two remarkable families that show it's not bad parenting.
One thing we noticed when we went to the cemetery is that there's no headstone on the grave.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the next time you guys go to the cemetery, we want to change that. So we're going to make sure that there's a headstone there.
It'll be 7 years this March, and he's never had anything.
Make her proud.
Thank you so much.
We don't do this to get, things handed to us. We do it to get the word out. And
Thank you so much. This really means a lot to our family.
Making sure that people go out there and talk about it.
Unfortunately, our faces need to be put out there because, it's not getting through.
I'm really sorry we had to meet under these circumstances.
I want to make sure that other families learn through my story, and so they don't have to go through what my family goes through.
I recently had a chance to visit with the men aboard the USS Kentucky, America's deadliest weapon. The super sub is longer than the Washington Monument and ready to unleash more firepower than the world has ever seen. As you're about to see, should the unthinkable ever happen, America is ready. In the doomsday scenario of our worst nightmares, America would be forced to respond with what's known as our nuclear triumph. Land-based missiles fired from secret silos. B-1 bombers would do their damage from the air. But America's salvation would likely come from somewhere deep under the waves. This is Fort Lauderdale, where silent, deadly killers lurk. From men like Commander James Hurt of the USS Kentucky. And when you talk about the teeth of the triad, 70% of the firepower would come from America's submarine.
We talk about the ability to reliably respond to any aggression, and it makes sense that the leg of the triad that is the hardest to find, because we are undetectable once we go to sea, that's where the majority of the firepower should be.
Inside, she's $2 billion worth of the latest high-tech equipment. Her heart beats to the rhythm of 165 of the best America has to offer, and the best Arizona has to offer. Phoenix's Cody Blackburn is one of Kentucky's missile techs, and should the call ever come, he could be one of the men unleashing the deadliest attack the world has ever known.
I am here to execute the orders of the President of the United States, and I will execute them when called upon.
No hesitation?
No hesitation.
We train for that all the time. We are ready to execute that mission if called upon. I don't think there's anybody on board that really wants to execute that mission. In fact, I know there's nobody on board that wants to execute that mission, but we all understand that that's part of what we signed up for.
This multi-billion-dollar technical marvel is the tip of the spear for America's defense. And if the unthinkable were to happen, the captain, along with a specific chain of command, would have to deliver the president's orders to launch a nuclear weapon. That threat, perhaps more real now than at any time since the Cold War, was one of the reasons why we weren't allowed to shoot a lot of the ship. And everything that we did shoot was scrutinized with at least one security officer constantly looking over photographer Chad Brick's shoulder. It's also why a lot of our questions went unanswered. Are there actually nuclear warheads in these tubes right now?
Well, I appreciate your question, sir, but I can neither confirm nor deny the President's nuclear warheads on this ship.
The Kentucky, like all of America's ballistic subs, operates with two crews, each with its own captain, while one is at sea, usually for 70 days at a time. The other is training, staying sharp on multi-million-dollar simulators, ready to jump in the minute the Kentucky returns to port. But despite her enormous firepower, 24 nuclear missiles on board, Kentucky's mission isn't aggression, it's deterrence.
You know, there's no accident that we haven't had a world war in 70 years, and I think part of that equation is that the nuclear triad has been providing that strategic deterrence to deter, very capable conventional adversaries from getting into a conflict worldwide.
It goes back to what Roosevelt once said, speak softly but carry a big stick. The Kentucky is America's biggest stick. But if you ask why they do what they do, all you have to do is take a peek in the captain's stateroom.
We can talk about patriotism and doing things for our country, and that's all very important, but when you can make it visceral, when you can talk about, we are providing freedom and security to our families and to the families of those around us and those we love, that makes it easier to do our job.
Now, obviously, because of the mission, there can be no mistakes when you're talking about nuclear weapons, and that's why the Navy has invested so much, not just in the subs, but in high-tech sub simulators. So next Monday, we'll take you inside these simulators that are so real, I actually got a little seasick on one of them. It was a 360-degree screen, and they can make, this was a trainer that teaches the submariners how to take the sub on the surface out to the dive point.
Oh, okay.
And you're looking around at the moving pictures, and you start feeling like you're actually rocking.
Now, what did it feel like inside the sub? Were you claustrophobic?
No,
was everything very tight?
It's actually very big. I mean, now over 150 men on board, things are a little bit cozy when you're down there for 3 months at a time. But it was much bigger than I thought it would be.
Okay, so it felt perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You weren't trying to get out.
No.
Okay.
No.
The shooting at Aztec High School has a very personal connection to me because two of my cousins are currently students there and were on campus when the shooting happened.
Now, my whole family is so incredibly thankful that we can say that they are safe. They were not harmed, but my cousin did tell me that she was having to hide inside of a closet and was able to hear gunshots. I feel compelled to talk about something that happened to me because, unfortunately, now in my family, there are 3 people who can talk and say that they have been the victims of gun violence at a school.
The fear and uncertainty could be seen on the faces of the children.
Face covered with the eyes cut out.
Dressed in camouflage and carrying a loaded gun, had calmly walked on campus and into a classroom.
I saw him walk in and I was there, like a wave of confusion came over me.
He simply walked into the room with a gun.
He said, it's a 9mm. I said, is the weapon loaded? And he goes, yes.
The realization, at least for me, that something very serious was happening was when I saw my teacher. She was very calm. She told all of us, everyone just get on the ground. And I remember she started to get on the ground herself.
And the main thing was keep everybody calm and make sure nobody did anything that would agitate him.
I will never forget my classmate who was sitting behind me when she crawled right up next to me, and she had a death grip on my shirt.
Before the police arrived, Henkel had evacuated more than 200 students, plus 21 of the 32 hostages.
I actually had to walk past him and have my back to him, and I did not know what he was going to do.
He walked out with one student and the teacher and gave himself to the Glendale Police Department.
I did think that I was going to die. And as a 14-year-old, having that kind of a thought cross your mind inside of a school where you should feel safe. School should be the last place where this would occur. I asked my mom, I asked her what that was like to get that kind of a phone call. And she said it was the worst phone call of her life. I do remember sitting in that math class with my same teacher and having class as normal after the fact. And every so often when the door would open, my heart would kind of skip a beat a little bit because it would just bring back that memory of what happened when one of my classmates walked in with a loaded gun. It makes me sad and it makes me angry. This is not something that you want to have in common with other people. And my hope is that somehow, some way, we can restore the safety in our schools, because children should not be worried about their safety when they go to school. Parents should not be hesitant or worried or scared about what could happen to their child when they go to school.
Wow. Charlie, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. I know it wasn't easy, and I would imagine that you never get over something like that.
You don't. I mean, you can move on from it, but yeah, getting over it and entirely forgetting something like that is not something that you can do. Very traumatic, very scary. But like I said, I've moved on and processed it, you know, as well as I could.
And that happened 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Back in 2000.
But every time you see a school shooting.
Yeah, I mean, especially doing this job and being in this line of business, it's hard sometimes to hear about some of the violence happening at schools and not think about what happened to me, you know, and so I just, you know, learned to work through that, and I think it helps me as a journalist to have that perspective sometimes because I know what that's like.
Yeah.
And thank goodness you and your classmates and everybody made it out alive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Charlie, thanks. Well, if you've been through a big event and you'd like to share your powerful story with us, email us at impact@12news.com. You can also connect with us on the 12 News Facebook page.
We will make America great again. Thank you, Arizona. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
You have been listening to President Trump wrapping up his campaign rally for 2020 here in Phoenix. 12 News back on the air. We promised that we weren't going to break into America's Got Talent unless violence broke out, and sadly, that's exactly what's happened. As the Trump supporters started filing out of the Phoenix Convention Center almost immediately after the president's speech, they ran into Trump protesters who had been outside the entire time in that heat. Words were exchanged. We understand perhaps a flashbang has gone off. We don't know if any tear gas has been used, but we do have crews stationed on the ground to bring you the best coverage.
That's right. We're going to head out live to Kevin Kennedy, who is nearby where some of this action is taking place. Kevin, what's happening where you're at?
I can tell you right now, you can probably hear the Phoenix Police Department is shooting some tear gas into a crowd of people that are not wanting to disperse. You can see the group of police officers walking towards them. I'm going to run that way. I'm going to tell you right now that if you're having trouble hearing me, because it is very difficult, we're essentially running into the tear gas. I can tell you we've heard at least 4 or 5 flashbangs go off. There's another one right there. This is on 3rd Street and Monroe. You can see that large group of police officers that are heading that way. I can tell you, well, you can really smell this tear gas or gas. You can probably see it right there. Officers are shooting tear gas into the air. They're also spraying what appears to be some sort of pepper spray. That's probably about the 5th or 6th time I've heard some sort of tear gas. Once again, we're on the corner of 3rd Street and Monroe. We don't know exactly what kind of instigated this situation, but for whatever reason, Phoenix police officers decided to go ahead and fire off a couple of gas bombs or tear gas or something along those lines to kind of get this crowd moving. As you can see, this wall of Phoenix police officers right there on the corner. There's a massive amount of gas on the corner of 3rd Street and Monroe, where looks like a lot of people excuse me, are still trying to kind of fight through it.
That's about where we believe Kevin is right now, so just a little bit down the street, down 3rd Street. Here, though, we do not see tear gas. I don't feel anything in my eyes. So for the moment, things just very tense and very loud here. That's all I can report from this particular location. We're on the south side of the Phoenix Convention Center, 3rd Street and Washington.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. We're going to head back out to Kevin Kennedy, who is live where some of that tear gas is being dispersed. Right now, you can see Kevin covering his mouth. Kevin, it looks like you're pretty close to where that tear gas is being dispensed there. Do you have any idea of why police decided to do that in the area that you're at?
Yeah, don't know why. Our only guess is that for whatever reason, they wanted a crowd of protesters to disperse, and that crowd probably was not dispersing. We're on Monroe Street between 2nd Street and 3rd Street. Most of the activity appears to be on the corner of 3rd Street and Monroe. That's where you can see a large group of police officers. Obviously, we're blocked off right now. They've essentially kind of set up a blue wall where we are in the middle of Monroe Street between 2nd Street and 3rd Street. Looks like there's a bigger crowd of officers over there exactly on the corner. Once again, not exactly sure what kind of triggered that, but you can certainly see the large plume of smoke. Let me go ahead and get our photographer to pan up. You can certainly see the large plume of smoke from tear gas that they deployed. We've heard at least probably 6 or 7 bangs, excuse me, is my guess, but not exactly sure at this point why. Only can assume that it was because for whatever reason a crowd was not dispersing like Phoenix police wanted them to. And that's why they go ahead and set those off.
Yeah, we are being told that the reason why police had to dispense that tear gas was because the protesters that were out there were throwing rocks and bottles at police.
Yeah, the police are not going to use tear gas to break up nonviolent crowds. What I'm hearing tonight from my sources is that the police began receiving rocks and bottles being thrown at them, some type of gas-like, tear-like device as well deployed against the police. At that point, not only are their lives at risk, but the people they're supposed to protect as well if they can't do their job. Hence, we're seeing about 4 volleys of tear gas so far tonight.
President Trump, who was inside with his supporters, thousands of them, for almost an hour and a half. And then you had this huge, massive protesters that were outside. Eventually, the supporters had to file out into possibly areas where they had these people protesting. And so would you say that this was kind of a point where everybody would be on guard for something to happen?
Certainly when the event is ending, that's the last chance for those in the crowd who want to make trouble to make their trouble.
And it just takes really one person to set off kind of a chain reaction of events.
Right. We saw a young woman who was obviously in distress, having water poured on her face and eyes, especially after getting a whiff of the tear gas.
I mentioned earlier that police are doing a great job of keeping each side of the street separated. Now, across the way, Nick, if you can pan over there, you see the Donald Trump flag and a lot of the Make America Great signs. Those people are in direct opposition to the protesters on this side. But again, it's just talk. It's a lot of banter back and forth. Police are keeping it separate. You can see the heavy, heavy presence of Phoenix police officers here, some of them wearing helmets and shields. And that's really the difference right now.
Kev?
Yeah, guys, as you can probably see, the protesters are still out here right now directing a lot of their ire at the Phoenix police officers. I'm joined here by Sadie. Sadie, you were on 3rd Street, or on 2nd Street, excuse me, when the tear gas initially went. But then you walked that way. What did you see and what was it like?
So as I walked towards 3rd Street and Monroe, I started seeing more cops coming towards me, and then more tear gas, or whatever that gas was. A lot of people were coughing. I tried to take another route, and then a cop guy came screaming and yelling at me, telling me to go away, and I turned to him and I told him, like, you don't need to yell at me, I'm just walking. And
there's another one right now, guys.
A lot of this, these protesters are protesting against police, which is surprising because in Charlottesville, obviously, we had the people that were there protesting the removal of the statues and things like that. Here, this seems to be, and I could be wrong, really aimed at police.
It seems to be that way because the message for Trump has come and gone. He's left the facility, he's back at his hotel, and yet the only people they're engaging with are the law enforcement officers who are there to protect the protesters.
So these people obviously coming for trouble.
Exactly. You will find this frequently. There's people who don't like the police simply because they're police, and yet they have one job tonight, to keep people safe.
Right, because if they were here just to simply protest, they wouldn't be, inciting violence toward the police, throwing rocks and throwing bottles at them.
We've got tear gas going off, flashbang grenades, which can stun you, render you temporarily deaf. If you were an honest protester who made your point, time to go home.
Right.
Time to leave. If you're sticking around engaging the police, you're somebody that probably deserves to be arrested by the end of the night.
Looking at this, it would be hard to believe there haven't been some.
Right. And it looks like a lot of police presence. I mean, is this proportionate, would you say, to the size of protesters that we had outside of the Phoenix Convention Center, or even just to this group?
Everyone in law enforcement in this city tonight has either been called into work or is on standby to come in immediately, perhaps being held back at the stations to be deployed. They've brought in everyone now because you want to keep the city safe. We haven't heard anything about damage to businesses, glass windows, etc. The city wants to keep it that way, and so they're using all the resources they have.
They did not want another Charlottesville to happen. And we're going to head over to Tram Mai. She has a look at what is playing out on social media. So let's go to that right now. Okay.
All right, Caribe, I'll take it from here. We are live in the Alert Center right now, and I can tell you I've been monitoring what has been feeding online on Twitter, and what started out as just supporters and protesters talking about, Trump's speech during the rally and everything, and so many memes, quickly escalated into a lot of video that has been captured by a number of people. You're watching one of them right here, all the violence that has been erupting. So it is quite scary. And again, you are looking at some of the video that a lot of these people downtown have been capturing and putting on Twitter. Using the hashtag Phoenix Rally, as well as Phoenix Rally Violence as well. So again, a lot of tense moments up here, and we'll send it back to you guys down in the studio.
Ryan, we see a lot of movement going on behind you. What's happening?
So what just happened a few minutes ago was the Phoenix Police Department officially told the crowd here, the protesters, to disperse. they started pushing some of the people backwards up the staircase. And you see there's an arrest being made at the moment with a young woman who sitting down on the stairs, and they were pushing the protesters back, and then they started pushing back at police. And that is what we saw coming down the stairs. There was some pushing and shoving, and now we do see one woman is in handcuffs as police are moving everyone down the street. So that's all we know at the moment. They've been told to disperse, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, guys, Phoenix police are now on the overhead loudspeaker with one of their police vehicles, basically telling the crowd that, look, this is an unlawful assembly and you must leave. They're saying go home, and obviously if you don't go home, certainly you could be arrested.
Roll the open.
Now, from the number 1 night team.
It was a scary time in my life. I thought it was over.
Breaking news.
A gunman opens fire on a Las Vegas concert, killing more than 50 people in what's now the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history.
Team 12 in Las Vegas tracking the search for answers as we learn more about the shooter's ties to Arizona.
This is a crazed lunatic full of hate.
It was an act of pure evil.
People from Arizona at the concert running for their lives.
I got my sister out and my mom out. I got them both, but there's still shooting over there.
And a former ASU student in the crowd as the gunman hit people on both sides of her.
I said, Mom, we're hiding. You need to take care of my kids. You have to make sure my kids are okay.
Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton highlighting the urgent need for blood.
Insider secrets on what you should do if you ever find yourself in a mass shooting situation.
All this as the Diamondbacks get ready to host a playoff game at Chase Field. Are the players worried?
More breaking news.
A missing mom accused of snatching her son found after months on the run.
I'm trying to find tickets. We're going to pick them up.
And the 100-degree temps are back. Arizona's news leader in action for you tonight.
Here we go.
12 News at 10 starts right now. Good evening. It sounded like a war zone. Nearly 24 hours after a lone gunman opened fire on a crowd of concert goers in Las Vegas, the fatal shots are still echoing across the nation.
Authorities continuing to dive into the background of the shooter tonight. Still, very little is known about his motives for killing at least 59 people and injuring more than 500.
Among those killed, a newlywed protecting his wife, a special ed teacher, a single mom, police officers, and so many others.
Here's a look at the scene where the attack played out. The gunman taking aim from his room on the 32nd floor of a Mandalay Bay hotel room. He was just 400 yards away from the concert on the opposite side of the iconic Las Vegas Strip.
Tonight we have the very best team coverage headed your way. First, Team 12's Joe Dana, who's live in Las Vegas with the latest. Joe?
Guys, it's hard to fathom, but police say they found 23 guns in the suspect's hotel room at the Mandalay Bay behind me. They found another 19 guns along with explosives at the suspect's home, about an hour and a half northeast of here in Mesquite. Now, as this investigation is underway, people here today also took the time to mourn the victims.
And we're saddened and we're sorry.
A somber vigil after bullets rained down on the Las Vegas Strip. 64-year-old Stephen Paddock used a hammer to break 2 windows in his suite at the Mandalay Bay Hotel before opening fire on a crowd of country music concert goers below. Reloading again and again until turning the gun on himself as SWAT teams closed in.
Breach, breach, breach.
Investigators described Paddock as a wealthy retiree who would travel to Vegas to play high-stakes poker, gambling more than $10,000 a day several times in recent weeks. His brother offering few clues to a possible motive.
It's just like an asteroid fell out of the sky. There was nothing that would say he would do this kind of thing.
Among the victims losing their lives, a Tennessee man who helped his wife to safety, and a university student who was known to coach his little brother's flag football team. Feelings of helplessness here haunt survivors.
I would feel their pulse or grab their arm, and there was nothing. So we would just cover them up with. A lot of them were wearing cowboy hats, and we would just cover them up and keep going to the next one.
Authorities say identifying the victims will be a long process that takes time. The mood here tonight very somber in a city that usually never sleeps. We're going to have a look at the critical need for blood. That's just in a few minutes. In Las Vegas, Joe Dana for 12 News at 10.
All right, Joe, thanks again. We'll see you in a few minutes. We're learning the Las Vegas shooter did have some ties to Arizona. According to Stephen Paddock's brother, their father, Patrick, was once on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. He robbed a bank in Phoenix back in 1960 and then later escaped from federal prison. According to newspaper reports at the time, Paddock lived in Tucson with his 4 kids. One of those, presumably, was Stephen Paddock.
Well, not only is Vegas a quick flight away, but it's an easy road trip from the Valley.
Team 12's Ryan Cody is working to track down the Arizonans who were there during that massacre and who are lucky to be alive tonight. Ryan?
Yeah, Mark, lucky is the key word there, because if you're a country music fan in Arizona, it only makes sense to think about going to a concert that big only a few hours from home. Many watching on TV with the feeling of, wow, I mean, that could have been us. And for several Arizonans, it almost was.
You could hear the pop, 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 and that's what I knew. We needed to hit the ground.
First-hand accounts from those just landing back in Phoenix. Arizonans lucky enough to survive the worst shooting in modern U.S. history.
We thought that it was fireworks or something that was going off.
Tanya Groff coming home in a wheelchair after taking shrapnel in her leg. The experience horrifying enough to know she's one of the lucky ones.
I'm still in shock, but being at the hospital was really hard, and seeing people with their injuries and seeing people who had passed from the injuries was really hard.
Several off-duty Mesa police officers in the crowd as well. Instincts leading them to join the hundreds helping victims.
I even feel like they could have done more, and quite honestly, there's nothing more they could have done.
I was actually at the concert.
Local country music radio stations taking calls all day. KMLE actually sending someone to the concert as part of a ticket giveaway. Luckily, learning that person is safe.
It just hit so close to home.
ASU students Lexi Doyle and Megan Freger near the stage when bullets started raining down.
I could just see out because there were fences around, and that's where a lot of people had gotten shot. He must have just ripped right through there because it was just bodies all along this fence.
Images many Arizonans can't forget about a night gone terribly wrong. One woman with ties to Arizona is still among the missing. Former University of Arizona student Christina Duarte's family says she is among the 22,000 that were at the show, and they're still trying to contact her. We're live in the Live Alert Center. Ryan Cody, 12 News at 10.
All right, Ryan, thanks. Well, Arizona officials took to social media to share their thoughts and prayers after the deadly mass shooting erupted. Governor Doug Ducey tweeted, "To honor and remember the victims of the Las Vegas shooting, flags at all state buildings will be flown at half-staff until sunset on October 6th. Senator John McCain wrote, "Cindy and I are praying for the victims of the terrible Las Vegas shooting and their families. We appreciate the bravery of all the first responders." And Senator Jeff Flake tweeted, "Awful, awful scene in Las Vegas. My heart goes out to the victims and their families." And finally, former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords wrote, "My heart is with the victims, their families and friends, and the law enforcement officers who risked their lives to save others."
This unthinkable tragedy hits extra close to home for many of us here in Arizona. Earlier tonight, I talked to a former ASU student who was in that concert crowd, running for her life as the bullets rained down and people on both sides of her were hit. Are you almost in shock right now that you lived through this?
I'm in crazy shock because people, as my husband and I were running out, were getting shot down next to us.
As a mom, what is going through your mind at that point when people are being gunned down all around you and you're running for your life?
The first thing that happened when we were ducking behind the cop car, my husband and I was trying to call my mom because my parents were watching the kids while we were there, and I couldn't get a hold of her, and I was breaking down to my husband saying, "We're never going to see our kids. Like, I'm never going to see our kids anymore." And then when we got to the big rig and we were hiding, I called my mom, and she answered the phone, and she had no idea what was going on. And I said, "Mom, we're hiding. You need to take care of my kids. You have to make sure my kids are okay." And my mom, of course, freaked out because I'm her daughter. And she was like, "Well, what's going on?" I'm like, "There's shots being fired everywhere. People are dying." you have to take care of my kids. I don't think Colin and I are going to make it.
Any thoughts on why you and your husband were able to make it and so many others didn't?
Luck.
So tonight we want to hear from you, and it's a question that we're probably all asking ourselves. Are you worried about event safety here in Arizona in the wake of the Las Vegas attacks? Just go to 12news.com/yourvoice to vote in our live interactive poll, and we'll have those final results right before The Tonight Show.
We're following more breaking news right now. Tempe police say at least 5 people have been hurt in a car crash near Southern and Harding. 3 of the patients were trapped and had to be extricated. They're in critical condition. Another victim who wasn't trapped is also critical, and a 5th victim suffered minor injuries. No word on the cause of the crash or any of their identities.
We have some more breaking news. A baby and mother missing since June have been found. The little boy thankfully safe tonight.
The child's father posting the news on Facebook tonight.
We just got great news, everybody. Great news. The Mesa Police just called. They found Maddie and William. Maddie's in custody. William's with CPS. He's well and safe.
Madeline Jones allegedly ran off with little William after a judge granted the father, who you just saw, joint custody. Her parents are in jail as well, accused of helping her hide.
Team 12's Monique Griego joins us from the newsroom with the details on how cops caught her. Monique?
William's father had no idea if he'd ever see his son again, but thanks to Mesa Police and a massive online following, they're about to be reunited. After 3.5 months of anguish, not knowing what happened to his son, baby William, Jacob Gokener finally got the news he'd been waiting for.
I'm so excited. I just got a call from the Mesa Police Department saying that they found my son and my ex-wife, and they located them in San Diego.
Gokener's ex-wife, 19-year-old Madeline Jones, and baby William went missing back in June. Mesa Police now believe Jones and her parents staged the duo's disappearance to keep Gokener away from the baby after he won joint custody. Last week, police arrested Cassandra and Roland Jones for their part in the plot and for allegedly lying to police.
I haven't heard how my son is doing for the past 3.5 months, and so it's just been crazy, and so hearing the news that they're safe and well is such welcome relief.
It just doesn't pay off.
Destiny Mack didn't know the family but felt compelled to help.
And I just am so glad that he was young enough to maybe never remember any of it.
Max started this Facebook page, which eventually led to more than 11,000 people, most of them strangers, doing their own detective work on the case.
There was a whole community of people that loved him and wanted him home.
Police say Jones is in custody and William is now in the care of CPS. As for Gokener, he's just happy his son is safe and can't wait to be reunited with him.
Give him a big hug, take lots of pictures, and introduce him to his aunts and uncles that want to meet him dearly. So.
At last check, Gokener was frantically trying to get on the next flight to San Diego from where he lives in Utah. We'll keep you posted on the reunion. Monique Griego, 12 News.
12 News at 10, tracking breaking developments
surrounding the deadly Las Vegas shooting.
Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton highlighting the urgent need for blood.
Insider secrets on what you should do if you ever find yourself in a mass shooting situation.
All this as the Diamondbacks get ready to host a playoff game at Chase Field. Are the players worried?
Stand by.
Check the framing.
Places, please.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
And we continue to monitor new developments out of Las Vegas, where a gunman fired a barrage of bullets on an outdoor country music festival last night, killing at least 58 people and injuring more than 500 others.
This is the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, and it comes just over a year after the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, where 49 were killed. Almost a decade before that, we had Virginia Tech, 32 dead. And in 2012, the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre. It claimed the lives of 20 children and 7 adults.
There's an outpouring of support in Las Vegas tonight as hundreds of people are turning out to donate blood.
This is what it looked like. The lines, unbelievable early this morning. The lines stretched for blocks with countless donors waiting to help replenish the blood supply to treat the injured.
Team 12's Joe Dana joins us from Las Vegas once again with how folks are helping out even here in Arizona. Joe?
Yeah, and I don't want to sound harsh, but this gives you an idea of the reality of the situation. The sidewalk I'm standing on is stained with trails of fresh blood. This is an area where victims fled en masse from the shooting spot down behind me. And in fact, one of the medical centers here nearby received the largest number of victims. And they, along with other hospitals in this area, received donations of blood from United Blood Service centers from around the West. So while the hospitals here have been getting a good supply of blood from those areas, that means that other blood locations around the West could use donations. And in fact, today, Mayor Greg Stanton donated blood at a Glendale location to sort of send the message. He, along with United Blood Services, are urging you to help replenish our local supply that came here to Las Vegas.
So, too oftentimes, people wait until there's a national disaster or a loved one in the hospital before they give blood. But really, situations like this are a reminder of the need for blood. And it's just so important that people take the time to donate blood, whether it be for a Las Vegas shooting victim or a child fighting cancer at Phoenix Children's Hospital. You know, many of the stories that we have on a daily basis may not be the ones in the news, but to those patients and their families, that blood donor is every bit a hero to them.
So you can donate blood to United Blood Services by making an appointment. You can find details on that. We've got information at 12news.com. And right now, the greatest need is O negative and O positive red blood cells. Those types are the most universal. We're also told that blood platelets are also in need. So perhaps for those looking for a way to honor the victims here, the United Blood Services is saying they'll take your appointments anytime this week. That'll do it for us here in Las Vegas. I'm Joe Dana for 12 News at 10.
Joe, thanks. A good way to give back. Well, there are a lot of big events coming up here in the Valley over the next few weeks, including the D-backs playoff game on Wednesday, the State Fair, and a music festival. So is Arizona prepared if, God forbid, we had an attack like this here?
Team 12's Kevin Kennedy joins us from the Satellite Center with a first-hand look at what one security expert says you can do to stay safe.
It's all about being aware of your surroundings, identify exit, places to hide, and if you can, where the shots are coming from. It really is a worst-case scenario. Thousands of people packed into a small area, a shooter up high, armed and firing.
It is a very lethal situation to be in.
So what do you do? Isabel Maldonado is a retired police captain.
Your instinct would be to duck. The first thing would just be a bad thing. It's not a horrible thing.
But now what? Run or hide?
The first thing that you look for is cover. That's your best choice.
Cover is anything that can stop a bullet. So in this scenario, if the shooter was up there, where would you go? What do you see?
I'm not seeing a lot here. You know, there isn't a lot.
Your options are limited, but there are usually some. Isabella's showing us.
One of the first things you can do, you can lie down right under, but you have to cram your body as closely to the stone as you possibly can.
This pillar is also a safe zone. So is this spot. Even a tree, if big enough, could provide cover. And when there isn't any, look for a place to conceal your location. It's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing.
Hiding, even if it's behind a plastic sign, provides safety. Identifying the location of the shooter key, every situation different.
Sometimes really the only option that you have is to get out of the kill zone. You must flee.
If you run, take the shortest route. The less exposure you have, the greater you increase your chances of surviving. In the Satellite Center, Kevin Kennedy, 12 News at 10.
Kevin, thank you. And don't forget to weigh in to our live interactive poll tonight. We want to know, are you worried about event safety here in Arizona?
You can go to 12news.com/yourvoice and vote. We'll have the final results coming up in a couple of minutes.
And remember to stay with 12 News, 12news.com, and our social media apps. Team 12's Joe Dana and Jessica DeNova are both in Las Vegas. Jessica will bring us the latest developments live on 12 today. That's starting at 4:30 in the morning.
And then at 7 a.m., Savannah Guthrie anchors a special edition of Today live from Las Vegas. She'll be sharing stories of heroism as the wounded recover. Well, tonight we're following breaking news. NBC News confirming that rock star Tom Petty, known for a string of great hits, including Free Falling has died.
Tom Petty was 66 years old. Reports first surfaced on TMZ that he was being hospitalized after going into cardiac arrest.
The early rumors of his death prompted an outpouring of grief on Twitter, where Petty was the top worldwide trending topic at one point today.
Musicians like Juliette Lewis, Courtney Love, Kid Rock, and Cyndi Lauper were all among those posting remembrances before the official word came down. Tracking tomorrow, Vice President Mike Pence is coming to Phoenix to meet with Governor Doug Ducey and Arizona business leaders to discuss Republican efforts to pass tax reform. He'll also attend a political fundraiser for the Donald Trump-Pence victory, then stay the night in the Valley before leaving in the morning to possibly meet up with the president in Las Vegas.
And MCSO and Chandler Police will hold a meeting tomorrow night for concerned parents of Hamilton High School students and student athletes to discuss the sex assault allegations. The meeting will take place from 6 to 7 at the First Baptist Church on Arizona Avenue.
Good evening, everybody. I want to start our forecast tonight by showing you something beautiful. Thanks to 12 News weather watcher Raul for sending in this sunset shot from the White Tanks tonight. Let's talk about how your day looked today. So average would be 94. We hit 92 today, so we're looking good. But these temperatures are about to crank up because this high pressure is going to continue building in our direction coming up from the Gulf. So you're going to see these temperatures rising. Dew points mostly in the 30s and 40s right now. We're seeing a 45-degree dew point in Phoenix. Those will also be on the rise later this week, bringing us the potential for some showers over in the eastern portions of Arizona by midweek. Tonight, we're going to cool down to about 65 to 70 for those lows in the valley. A clear night on tap. We'll see sunrise at about 6:24 tomorrow morning. We'll cool down to 60 in Sedona, 40 in Flagstaff, 48 in Winslow. Tomorrow, we see a high of 68 in Flagstaff, 80 in Sedona, 85 in Winslow, 92 over in Havasu. In Phoenix, warming up to 95, so right around average. The kids may get a little chilly at the bus stop, so they may need a jacket with those temperatures from about 66 to 70 degrees. Do look at Friday and Saturday. We are likely going to see the triple digits yet again. On the bright side, it's one more weekend you can spend by the pool. Mark?
Moments away, injury news and security concerns surrounding the D-backs wildcard playoff game. Coop's up next with sports.
12 Sports is sponsored by your Valley Toyota dealers.
Well, this is exactly what Diamondbacks manager Torey Lovullo did not want to see heading into the playoffs: an injury. Starting shortstop Ketel Marte was forced from yesterday's regular season finale with tightness in his left hamstring. I talked with Marte today before his scheduled MRI. How do you feel right now? If the game was to be played today, could you go?
Yeah, I can play. I mean, I'm not a baby, so if I gotta play, I can play. I feel like a little bit hurt, but I can play no matter what.
Okay, meantime, the Valley is brimming with excitement in anticipation of the Diamondbacks' first playoff game in 6 years. Wednesday's wildcard playoff game against the Colorado Rockies is a sellout. Close to 50,000 will be in attendance. Now, in the wake of the Las Vegas tragedy, I asked a number of players if they had any concerns relative to security for the game.
I don't feel comfortable talking about that. I was watching that all last night. That's tough to talk about. I'm just focused on today and practice. Not really worried about the security stuff right now.
I mean, we're out there playing a game. We're doing our best. That's where our mind is. We got some great workers here at Chase Field. We got bomb squad dogs. They got all sorts of security.
I don't think as players you think about that. You're trying to go out there and do your job and focus on that. And I think there's other people in the stadium that are gonna help take care of the other things.
Okay, don't go to bed in just 6 minutes. Adam Sandler, Dustin Hoffman, and Miley Cyrus join Jimmy on The Tonight Show right after 12 News at 10.
Recapping the tragedy in Las Vegas, at least 59 people are dead after a gunman opened fire from a hotel down into a large crowd at a concert last night.
Hundreds more were injured. The suspect is dead, and there is no motive right now.
And here are the final results from our live interactive poll. We asked, are you worried about event safety here in Arizona?
The majority of you seem to believe that you're somewhat worried, about 70%, and that's been the number for most of the day.
Have a great night.